So today I'd like to talk about two methods to attach a CW Morse code key to a Quansheng radio with the IJV firmware modification installed. There's a lot of resources about the IJV firmware for the Quansheng. I'm using the UV-K5 here, but you know, one of the great things about the firmware is it unlocks some different modes. There's double sideband, which allows you to do sideband communication, as well as CW. So unlock some modes for this cheap, about $35 radio. And what's nice about that, especially for somebody learning CW, is that you can do VHF, UHF, CW for a fairly cost-effective way, and you can do that locally on 70 centimeters or 2 meters, which is probably the recommended bands to transmit on with this firmware, given that the filters designed for this radio are for those bands, although the firmware does unlock a lot more bands that you can at least listen on. And so having CW on 70 centimeters and 2 meters allows for local CW communication. You can coordinate with other hams or even clubs to do some maybe practice. And what's nice about that compared to some of logging softwares is that, or not logging software, copying software or CW learning software, is that copying over the air is much different. There's interference. People's signal may dip down below the noise floor in your area. So it adds that added dimension to copying, which I think is great for practice. Now, by default, we can see here I'm in the CW mode. By default, with this radio, the PTT key is used as the sender. So if I want to send my call sign, oops. And you can see I kind of messed up there a little bit in the beginning. The PTT is not the easiest, not the most ergonomic, so it'd be preferable to attach a keyer. I'm going to show two solutions in this video, and the first is documented on the website that hosts the firmware, but here's what the final product looks like. What you're going to have to do is remove these last two pins, and I've attached a 35mm jack on the end here to use the connection with my CW key. And so what removing these pins does is it basically signals to the radio that there's no audio output. So if we plug that in, we can hear audio is still coming out of the radio. And of course I have to plug this end in. And now we have a keyer. And there you go. It's much more ergonomic, much easier sending. And this solution also would work if you have an iambic key. You would just use one side of the key as a straight key. Now the other solution is a bit different. So here's what the final cable looks like. This is a modification of the single earpiece that comes with the radio. And you can see it has two 35mm connectors attached. And you don't have to ruin the pins here on the end. So what this allows you to do is, so now the radio has audio out plugged in. Let's plug our keyer into the correct jack. And then the other end, I've modified it so that I can plug in some headphones. Now, the reason that I want to be able to do this is because I oftentimes need to be outside of my apartment to get good signal, and so being outside, that introduces noise, and ambient noise in the form of traffic or things like that. So I like to use dual headphones, not the single earpiece, to kind of block out the ambient noise and just focus on the sounds coming from the radio. So you might be able to hear some of the static coming through. And now, if I send with the keyer, yeah, hopefully you should have been able to hear that. And we now have a way to send CW and to also have headphones attached. I'll put a little disclaimer here and say that I'm not a electrical engineer. I'm not sure if this solution is optimal or even long-lasting, so of course tempt at the risk of your own equipment. But I'm pretty satisfied with the results, so yeah, we'll get into it and show you how this is all done. There should be a diagram also attached in the description of the video, so you can go based off of that. But I'll document and show you some of the process here. So the first method I'm going to show you here uses one of these programming cables. I'm sure many will work, but this happens to be a Baofeng Brendan one. And what you're going to want to do is cut off the end, because we don't need the USB section. And you'll expose some of the wires inside along with the pins. Now this one I've already broken off the last two pins. It can be a bit finicky, but the best method that I've found to do this is to grab first the center pin like this with one pair of pliers, and then work the top off with another pair, and then work your way down to the second section holding the bottom, not too tight so you don't deform, and then work the second one off. And then what you should be left with should look like this. And this one has a little bit of a nub sticking out in the middle, but that's perfectly fine. As you can see, we've taken it down to that last ring, or that last insulator for the 3-pin connector. And so on the other end here we have a red, white, and black wire, and the goal here is to short out the 2 ground pins, or 2 base pins, so we can double check, make sure we know which pin leads to which cable. So let's check this large pin. I believe that might connect to the white, and it does. You can see our multimeter for resistance is changing. And then the last one, I believe, is black. And I think, let's see, there we go. So, all right, so white and black is what we're going to need to short out. So one thing we can do is remove the red cable. So let's see here. There we go. So we don't need the red. And so basically what we're going to do is short out the white and black while this is connected to the Quansheng in CW mode, and that will get us our signal. And the way I'm going to facilitate that is through some 3.5 millimeter connectors. So, oops. Okay, each one comes with a little ring here that you can use to mount into something. So I'm just going to keep them together. just so that each jack has a ring, sort of screw-on washer, to do something with it later. Now what I'm going to do is split one of these into two parts, and then twist it a little bit, because this is for an iambic key. Somebody wants to use an iambic key as a straight key with the Quansheng. Let's see here. And so the Quansheng will only accept a straight key, but one side of an iambic will work as a straight key. And so you can use either side. I'm going to wire the split wire to these two shorter pins. One is for the tip and one is for the center, and then this larger one is for the base. So no matter which side of the iambic you push, you're going to short out the connection between these two base pins, and that's going to send a CW signal through the radio. So let's get soldering. So I've soldered one side here, and what I'm doing is I'm using a little pair of tweezers here to guide the end of this copper wire through the holes that are on these pins, just for a little added stability. There we go. And then soldering them into place. Okay, so now you can see that this white wire, the camera will focus, has been connected to these two pins. Now the black wire will be connected to the base pin. Okay, so now I've threaded the second cable with a little piece of insulation here over the last pin. We'll add a little solder there to make it a nice permanent connection. Clean off our solder iron. And now we're ready to seal this up, and we should be good to go. So first I'll put this little piece of insulation over this connector here to seal that off from the other two. And then I have this piece which will seal over the pins. And then finally this bigger red piece should seal from the end here, just the very end of the jack, to the cable, just for a little extra strength. Hot. Now the blue over all three. Very hot again. Let's see. All right. right. So that should do it. Let's test it out. And now let's see if we can transmit. And there you go. So we have a working cable for the CW key. So in this next part, I'm going to show you how to modify the headset or the headset cable that comes with the Quansheng HT to not only use it as a keyer, but to get audio out as well. You can either reuse this headphone, mono headphone, or you can use, we can wire in another one of these 35mm jacks so that you can get the audio out through your own pair of headphones, you know, in both ears, which to me is a little bit better, and that allows you to, you know, hear a little bit better when you are have a lot of ambient noise around. Now, so the cable, when it comes out, and you can follow along with the diagram that I have that should be in the description of this video. The cable has 4 wires, green, red, blue, and black, or white, but I don't have white, so in that case it's black. And I separated the microphone and also the headset to try and see, you know, what I needed to do, how could I preserve things to get the audio out, or, you know, what components needed to be preserved to get the audio out. The way, basically what I figured out is you don't need this middle piece, which is nice, the push-to-talk microphone. This won't get you any kind of keying, so we can get rid of that. Now the red cable here is for the microphone. We won't be using that. What we just did is we shorted the connection between the blue and the white cable on this cable. The blue and the white are the 2 base pins, and that's going to tell the radio that you're keying up. So we can ignore the red, the green and blue go up to the headphone for audio. One extra component you're going to need here is a 1 watt Zener diode. Here's how that's all going to be set up. Okay, this is a bit of a rat's nest of wires here, but let me explain what's going on. So I have the green cable here with this alligator clip connected to the green here, and this blue here is not connected to anything right now. What I'm going to use actually are these 3.6 volt 1 watt Zener diodes. They seem to prevent peaking of the audio when transmitting, just creating a really awful sound. So again, this is going to be, the diode itself will be forward biased towards the headphone, and then we'll connect the other end to the cable down here. So what I have connected to this white cable is another alligator clip, and this is going to serve as our input key for now. So if I turn on the radio, and let's see, so you should be able to hear some sort of static coming from the headphone. Now if we again short out below the diode in terms of thinking of the radio as being the bottom, the headphone as being the top, if we make that short below the diode, oops, then we should be able to transmit while having headphone output. And there we go. So now it's just a matter of soldering that all up and putting it all together. So I'm starting here with the headphone jack, and what I've done is I've threaded the diode into the 2 pins with again the direction of the diode going towards the jack itself, and I'm going to solder this in place so that we have a connection to both ends here. Let me adjust this a little bit. Okay. There we go. That's one side. I'll snip off this end. Save that. And let's see if we can bend this into the center a bit more. Like so. Great. And then bend this part down. All right, excellent. So this is the component we'll attach to the blue wire, and also need to short out through the through our other or through our straight key. So what I've done is I've taken a little bit of one of those legs from the diode and made a little hook to stick into the other pin here. I'll add the tiniest bit of solder. Let's see, there we go. I'll warm it up again just to get it, oops, pointing in the direction. Pretty hot. There we go. All right, kind of hot. I'm not sure I recommend doing that, but now I got that pointing in the direction that I want it to go into. Here is the cable. Now I have to put on some insulators before I start soldering these connectors on. So I think what my strategy is going to be here to put this all together is to start by putting the green onto the base pin. Whoops. So put the green onto the base pin or the longer pin, which I would attach the hook to, and then attach the blue to this diode. And then from the blue here, I will branch off for the keyer, which will, again, short the blue and the white. But before that, I have to make sure I have all the insulation on. So I'm going to want a piece of insulation to cover this junction eventually. What else? I'll need a piece of insulation to go around this. I want a piece of insulation to cover this ground pin to make sure it doesn't short out down here somehow before it goes through the jack into the headphones. So let's get that all set up. All right, so I think I have all the insulation I'll need on the wires now, hopefully. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of a pain later. But what I've done here first is stuck the end of this hook to the ground or the base pin into the green wire. So I'm gonna add some solder to this. Make that a nice, whoops, should have thought of that. But make this a nice permanent connection. There we go. Perfect. And I have a piece of insulation here that'll go over this and protect it from being shorted. So that's all set. Now, this blue will need to be connected to the end of this diode, but I will want to attach another wire here so that I can create the short with white. And so how I'm going to do that is have a little length of this double cable, just easier to keep track of things. And I'm going to take these two ends, oops, and connect them up. Okay, so with the ends of these two soldered together, I can now connect to the bottom of the diode here. Just reheat a little bit. Oops. How do I get that inside? There we go. And I'll add a little extra here for good measure. As you can see, I'm not the best solderer in the world, but I can do what I need to get it done. All right, so now I can heat shrink this around like that, and we should be good to continue. And there we go. So we have this cable and this cable heat shrinked, and that is our audio out. So now I'm going to connect these two ends together to create the short for the keying. So I think I'll match these two up first here and continue after I do that. Okay, so with this little split cable here, what I've done is wrapped the white cable to this, and so this is attached again, the other side is attached to the blue on the bottom end of that diode relative to where the headphone jack is going to go. So when I put the keyer on this side, that'll short things out. So now just got to add a little bit of solder to this connection. It's all getting a bit cumbersome. Hold that in place. We can add a bit of shielding here as well. All right. Now, this end is where we have to attach the other connector for the keyer. So let's do that. So similar to what I did before, I've jumped the center and tip pins and put a little hook on the end of the base pin just to make it a bit easier to attach the cables. So one side is going to be attached here. This way, if you're using iambic, if you're using a straight key, it doesn't matter. If you're using the center or tip, you're always going to make a short with the base. So just skipped over that because we kind of saw that with the diode. Now time to actually attach the cables here. What I've done at this point as well is just put a bit of heat shrink on the bottom here, just to keep things from flopping around too much. So now I'll attach the 35mm here for the key. What I've done here off camera is I've attached the two ends, one to the base, the other to the other two pins, and prepared a few pieces of heat shrink to go on over everything. The first is for the ground connection or the base connection. Let's see here. Here we go. You can slide that all the way up so that we won't short out the connection between these two before it goes in the pin. Let's see here if I can get it. Maybe with the help of my tweezers. Another piece of shrink, which may be too small, but that's okay because the final piece here, of course, the red will add some stability. I can get it over the top, so I think I'll do that off camera. So had to cut off that piece of heat shrink and wrap a bigger black piece of heat shrink around the top. But this is it, the final cable. So we have the, we can still see here the green and the blue, and the white cable is now encased in this red, but the green and the blue go up to here, first going through that diode, and then these two cables here short out the white and the blue. So black is for my key and red is for my headphones. So let's test it out. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully you could hear that audio out much better. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, please leave a question in the comments. I'll try to answer any questions as quickly as I can. And yeah, enjoy your CW with the Quansheng Radio, and I'll catch you on the bands. So one thing I did want to mention, all of those cables that I have, I already had soldered on, but this is quite a tedious process, be warned. So you can see here, this is the actual headphone cable with the shielding removed, and we can see a couple different colors of enamel coated copper wire here. So they're not separately sheathed. They each have just their own bundle of enamel wires here. Different colors. You can see blue, white, red, and green. And if we start to unravel, let's take a look at the red one. If we start to unravel this, you might be able to see that the red cable is there, but there is some sort of white insulation or shielding or structural filament. I'm not sure what that is. But what I did, the laborious process that I took, which you can try if you'd like, is to separate this white non-conductive filament from the red or copper, whatever color copper wire, and cut off the white here, and then scrape the red or the enamel coating very gently with a knife. And that's very tedious, very laborious. So again, maybe a little more effort than it's actually worth. But I saw somebody mention something about online about how enamel-coated wires, you can overcome that enamel and make an electrical connection with the heat of a soldering iron. So you may not even need to consider that. But what I wanted to try is to just use a flame. Now, I'd say be careful, of course, obviously, whenever you're using flame or heat. So this will burn away the non-conductive white fibers, and then it should burn off the enamel. But even a simple flame from a lighter can start to actually melt this copper. So be careful; it will begin to melt and glow. You can see there glowing a bit. So that should have done it. Now we can maybe try and remove some of the carbon coating that was left behind. The wire itself does look a bit dark. And what we can do to try and confirm that we do in fact have a conductive exposed wire is a bit of continuity testing with our multimeter here. So I'll do it this way. So let's put this on this end. If we go a little higher up, let's see, did we? So, okay, did jiggle around a bit. You can see there is continuity after just heat treating a bit. Maybe it would be good to just do a bit of scraping. Let's see if we get a more consistent. Oop. Okay. So we can see that just using a flame does work, and it's probably less time consuming than scraping with a knife. Yeah, I haven't tried it myself, but it should work. And once you attach, I would say attach another small length of wire here to make other connections easier, and applying some solder. Hopefully you have a good connection. Of course, always check the continuity, yeah, hopefully that works. Oh, I'll also say that these principles probably should work for any kind of mono earpiece that is compatible with this radio. So I'll have a link to one that looks like it's the one that came with this radio, but of course it should work. The principle should work for any earpiece, so long as you, of course, check the continuity of the cables.